Frozen isolation ice planet Kepler-4 was supposed to be a routine survey mission. Captain Marcus Webb had volunteered for the 6-month assignment, thinking it would be peaceful compared to his previous tours in the Outer Rim conflicts. The planet earned its nickname the Freezer for good reason. Temperatures rarely climbed above -40 degrees, and the constant blizzards made visibility nearly impossible. Marcus had been alone for 3 weeks when his heating unit started failing. Each night grew colder than the last, and his emergency blankets weren't designed for this kind of sustained abuse. He'd sent 3 distress signals, but the magnetic storms surrounding Kepler-4 made communication with the orbital station impossible on the 22nd night. As frost began forming inside his shelter, Marcus accepted he might not see morning. His breath came in short puffs, and his fingers had gone numb hours ago. The wind outside howled like something alive and angry. That's when he saw her. Through the translucent walls of his emergency shelter, a figure approached. At first, Marcus thought hypothermia was causing hallucinations. The shape moved too gracefully across the ice, unaffected by winds that would knock a human flat. She stood just beyond his shelter's entrance, motionless. Her skin had a pale blue tint that seemed natural rather than from cold exposure. Her hair was silver white, braided in complex patterns he'd never seen before. Most striking were her eyes, large, luminous, and completely black. Marcus tried to speak, but his jaw was too stiff from cold. The alien woman tilted her head, studying him with curiosity rather than hostility. After what felt like an eternity, she approached his shelter's entrance. Without hesitation, she unzipped the thermal seal and stepped inside. The temperature difference was minimal, but her presence somehow made the space feel warmer. She carried a sleeping pack twice the size of his standard tissue gear. She gestured to her sleeping pack, then to Marcus, then back to the pack. The meaning was clear, an invitation to share warmth. Marcus hesitated for exactly 3 seconds before survival instinct overrode social awkwardness. The alien woman's sleeping pack was made from materials he couldn't identify. The interior was lined with something that radiated gentle heat without any visible power source. As they settled in, maintaining careful distance, Marcus felt his muscles begin to relax for the first time in days. She spoke once, in a language of soft clicks and musical tones. When Marcus looked confused, she simply closed her eyes and went. Still not asleep exactly, but in some kind of meditative state. Marcus stayed awake longer, studying his unexpected companion. She breathed slowly and rhythmically, occasionally making small sounds that might have been words or might have been dreams. Despite everything, he felt safer than he had since arriving on this frozen world. Tomorrow would bring questions he couldn't answer. Tonight, for the first time in weeks, Marcus didn't think he would freeze to death. Understanding without words, Marcus woke to the sound of his companion moving around outside the shelter. Through the semi-transparent walls, he could see her examining his equipment with scientific curiosity. She held his thermal scanner up to the pale morning light, turning it over in her hands like she was trying to understand its purpose. When Marcus emerged from the sleeping pack, she was crouched next to his broken heating unit. Her long fingers traced the damaged components with surprising familiarity. She looked up at him and made a series of hand gestures, pointing to the unit, then to herself, then making a twisting motion. Marcus nodded, though he wasn't entirely sure what he was agreeing to. The alien woman opened a small pouch attached to her belt and withdrew tools that seemed too advanced for their simple appearance. One looked like a standard wrench, but it glowed faintly and seemed to adjust its size automatically. Working in silence, she began disassembling his heating unit. Marcus watched in fascination as she identified the problem immediately. A cracked thermal conductor that had been slowly leaking heat for weeks from another pouch. She produced a small, crystalline component that fit perfectly into the damaged space. Within minutes, the heating unit hummed back to life. The shelter began warming immediately, and Marcus felt his muscles unknot as the temperature rose. He looked at his companion with gratitude and amazement. She stood and brushed ice crystals from her clothing. Her garments weren't bulky like his thermal gear, yet she showed no signs of being affected by the cold. The fabric seemed to shift color slightly as she moved, adapting to the surrounding environment. Marcus pointed to himself and said, "Marcus." Then he pointed to her and raised his eyebrows questioningly. She considered this for a moment, then placed her hand on her chest and said, "Zara." The word came out like a whisper of wind across ice, but Marcus heard it clearly for the next hour. They engaged in a careful dance of communication. Marcus showed her items from his equipment, and she demonstrated their function with gestures or by sketching in the snow with her finger. Her drawings were precise and somehow conveyed meaning beyond their simple lines. When Marcus pointed to his survey instruments, Zara's expression grew more serious. She gestured toward the horizon, then made circular motions with her hands. She was trying to tell him something about the planet itself. Zara led him outside and pointed to specific locations across the ice fields. At first, Marcus saw nothing but endless white landscape. But as Zara continued pointing and gesturing, he began to notice subtle differences in the ice formations. Some areas had a different texture, others seemed to reflect light differently. She knelt and pressed her palm against the ground. After a moment, she looked up at Marcus with what he interpreted as excitement. She'd found something. Using her advanced tools, Zara carefully carved through several inches of ice. Beneath the surface, Marcus glimpsed metal that definitely wasn't natural. The material was smooth and dark, with patterns etched along its surface. Marcus realized this wasn't just a frozen wasteland. Something was buried beneath their feet, something that had drawn Zara here just as surely as his distress signals had failed to reach anyone else. As the day progressed, their wordless partnership grew stronger. Marcus provided human perspective and standard equipment, while Zara contributed technology and knowledge that seemed impossibly advanced. Together, they began mapping the extent of whatever lay hidden beneath the ice. The discovery beneath buried structures stretched much further than either Marcus or Zara had initially suspected. Using a combination of his ground-penetrating radar and her mysterious scanning tools, they mapped an area nearly 2 kilometers across. The metal beneath the ice formed geometric patterns too precise to be natural. Zara seemed increasingly excited by their discoveries. She would pause frequently, pressing her ear to the ice as if listening for something. When Marcus tried the same technique, he heard only wind and the distant groaning of shifting ice sheets. On their third day together, Zara made a breakthrough. She had been working at a specific location for hours, using tools that seemed to cut through ice like it was warm butter. When Marcus approached, he saw she had exposed a section of what looked like a door or hatch. The metal surface was covered in symbols that resembled the patterns on Zara's clothing. She traced them with her finger, and several began to glow with soft blue light. Marcus stepped back instinctively, but Zara gestured for him to stay close. The hatch opened silently, revealing a shaft that descended into darkness. Warm air rose from the opening, carrying scents that were both foreign and somehow familiar. Zara looked at Marcus questioningly, clearly asking if he wanted to proceed. Marcus had been trained for first contact scenarios, though nothing in his training had prepared him for this situation. Protocol said he should document everything and wait for backup. Reality said backup wasn't coming, and this might be the most important discovery in human history. He nodded to Zara, and she smiled, the first clearly human expression he'd seen. From her, together, they descended into the buried structure. The interior was surprisingly well preserved. Emergency lighting activated as they moved through corridors, lined with the same symbol-covered metal. The architecture was clearly designed for beings similar to Zara's species, slightly taller than humans, with longer limbs and more graceful proportions. In what appeared to be a central chamber, they found the remains of the original inhabitants. They were preserved in some kind of stasis pods, though the technology had failed long ago. Marcus counted 12 individuals, all bearing resemblance to Zara but with subtle differences in features and coloring. Zara moved among the pods with obvious sadness. She placed her hands on several of them and spoke in her musical language. Marcus didn't need translation to understand she was paying respects to the dead. At the far end of the chamber, they discovered what appeared to be a communication center. Banks of equipment lined the walls, some still flickering with residual power. Zara examined the controls with growing excitement She activated several systems, and holographic displays filled the air above them. Star charts, technical diagrams, and streams of data in unknown languages. Marcus recognized some stellar formations. They were looking at maps of local space, including his own solar system. One display showed Earth, clearly marked and annotated. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the planet's temperature. These people had known about humanity long before humans knew about them. Zara noticed his reaction and quickly manipulated the controls. New images appeared, not invasion plans or weapons schematics, but cultural exchanges, trade routes, and what looked like peaceful contact protocols. Her people hadn't been planning conquest, they'd been preparing for friendship. Marcus understood. Then why Zara had helped him. This wasn't just coincidence or alien altruism. She was here because her people had been waiting for this moment, planning for it, hoping for it. As they explored deeper into the facility, Marcus began to grasp the scope of what they'd found. This wasn't just an outpost or research station. It was a bridge between two species, built by beings who believed contact was inevitable and wanted it to succeed. Messages across the star's communication center held more surprises than Marcus could process. Zara had activated what appeared to be a historical archive, and holographic recordings filled the chamber with images of her people's civilization. Marcus watched in fascination as the story unfolded before them. Zara's species, who she indicated were called the Kithara, had been spacefaring for thousands of years. The recordings showed their exploration of nearby systems, their discovery of Earth, and their careful observation of human development. They had watched humanity's first steps into space, witnessed the colonial expansions, and prepared for eventual contact. What struck Marcus most was their patience. The Kithara could have made contact centuries ago, but they chose to wait until humanity was ready. They had established monitoring stations throughout human space, hidden bases like this one, all designed to facilitate peaceful first contact when the time was right. Zara manipulated the controls, bringing up more recent recordings. Marcus saw images of his own ship's arrival in the system, his landing on the planet, even footage of his first few days in the ice shelter. The Kithara had been watching him specifically. She pointed to herself, then to the recordings, then to Marcus, through gestures and simple drawings in the frost on nearby surfaces. She explained that she was part of a contact team, specialists trained in human behavior and culture. She had been assigned to make first contact with him specifically. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the implications. This wasn't a chance encounter or alien rescue mission. It was the culmination of centuries of preparation, and he was humanity's first official representative to an alien species. Zara activated another system, and the chamber filled with sounds, recordings of human languages, music, and even television. Broadcasts that her people had intercepted over the decades. She played a clip of classical music, then looked at Marcus questioningly. Marcus recognized Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and nodded enthusiastically. Zara's expression brightened, and she played more selections. Her people had been studying human culture through their broadcasts, learning about art, music, philosophy, and values. The most remarkable discovery came when Zara accessed what appeared to be a translation matrix. The system had been learning human languages for decades, building comprehensive databases of grammar, vocabulary, and cultural context. When Zara spoke into the system, her words came out in perfect English. "We have waited long time for meeting you, Marcus Webb of Earth." Hearing her speak his language was startling, but her message was even more impactful. This wasn't just first contact. It was the beginning of an interstellar relationship that had been carefully planned and anticipated by an entire civilization. Marcus found his voice. "Why now? Why me?" Zara's response, filtered through the translation system, was both simple and profound. "Your distress call was heard not just by machines, but by hearts. You showed courage in exploring unknown worlds, compassion in your messages home, and determination when faced with impossible odds. These are qualities my people value." She explained that the Kithara had been monitoring human expansion into space, waiting for individuals who demonstrated the best of human nature. Marcus's mission logs, his concern for his crew's safety over his own glory, and his respectful approach to alien environments had marked him as an ideal first contact candidate. The communication center held one final surprise. Zara activated a long-range transmitter and showed Marcus how to send a message to Earth. The Kithara technology could punch through the magnetic interference that had blocked his distress calls. As Marcus composed humanity's first intentional message to an alien species, he realized his survival mission had become something much more significant. He wasn't just sending a rescue request, he was opening a door between two worlds. The bridge between worlds message Marcus sent to Earth was simple but profound. First contact established. Species friendly, requesting diplomatic team, not rescue mission. Within hours, the response came back through Kithara communication systems. A fleet was already en route, having detected the unusual transmissions from Kepler-4 to sea. Zara explained that her people had been monitoring human communication networks and were prepared for this moment. Kithara ships were positioning themselves throughout human space, ready to reveal themselves peacefully once official contact was confirmed. Over the following days, Marcus and Zara worked together to prepare for the arrival of both species representatives. The buried facility transformed from an ancient archive into an active diplomatic center. Zara's people had designed it to serve exactly this function, a neutral meeting ground, where two species could begin building bridges. Marcus learned more about Kithara culture through their conversations. They valued patience, careful observation, and harmony with their environment. Their technology was advanced but focused on sustainability and cooperation rather than domination. They had developed faster-than-light travel through understanding rather than conquest. The most remarkable thing Marcus discovered was that the Kithara had been subtly helping humanity's development for decades. Minor technological breakthroughs, unexplained advances in material science, and fortunate discoveries of habitable worlds, many could be traced to Kithara influence, carefully applied to guide human progress without direct interference. When the human diplomatic ship arrived, followed shortly by a Kithara vessel that seemed to materialize from empty space, Marcus found himself serving as translator between species. His weeks with Zara had given him unique insight into Kithara communication patterns and cultural expectations. The formal first contact ceremony took place in the ancient chamber where Marcus and Zara had first discovered the truth about her people. Representatives from both species gathered around the holographic displays that showed the history of their separate developments and their destined convergence. Admiral Jackson, leading the human delegation, initially approached the meeting with military caution, but Zara's people had prepared for this too. They presented gifts of technology and knowledge freely, asking for nothing in return except friendship and mutual understanding. The Kithara delegation included specialists in human culture, historians who had studied Earth's development, and scientists eager to share discoveries with human researchers. They offered solutions to humanity's energy problems, medical advances that could extend human lifespan, and most importantly, membership in a galactic community of intelligent species. Marcus realized that his role was evolving from survivor to ambassador. His experience with Zara had taught him that successful communication between species required more than translation. It required empathy, patience, and willingness to see the universe from another perspective. As negotiations progressed over the following weeks, the ice planet transformed into a bustling diplomatic center. Permanent structures were built, combining human engineering with Kithara environmental harmony. The site became a symbol of cooperation between species. The final breakthrough came when Zara and Marcus demonstrated their successful partnership to both delegations. Their ability to work together, to communicate across species barriers, and to achieve more together than either could alone, became the model for future human Kithara cooperation. The rescue mission that had brought Marcus to Kepler-4 to sea became the foundation of humanity's entry into galactic civilization. His willingness to trust an alien stranger in a moment of desperation had opened doors that would benefit both species for generations to come. Years later, as the first human Kithara joint colonies flourished throughout local space, Marcus often reflected on that frozen night when Zara had slipped into his shelter without a word. Sometimes the most important moments in history begin with the simplest acts of kindness between strangers.